have right now in the US so much credit card debts and those mortgages and everything that cannot afford to save money. They have so many in those interests and everything. It just seems to get out.
Yeah, but the reason they put themselves in that is because they lived in a delusion and fantasy that they could afford more than they really could afford. They haven't saved any money in advance. If they can't pay their credit card at the end of the month, cut it up and get rid of it. They're not in a respectful position to be able to use a credit card. I haven't had a credit card in 25 years. I use an American Express for my bills. You have to pay it every month. I pay it every month. I don't think about it because I don't put myself in a situation where I'm paying on debts and living on supposed tomorrow's money. You always live wisely with your money now. You don't sit there and take risks and gamble on possibilities of money. You live realistic. And I'm really firm about that. And if I'm sounding harsh on people, because they need it. Because they're living in a delusion that somehow they're going to get by and get ahead by paying huge sums of money on credit card interest. This is a foolish management of money. People that don't value money, don't value themselves, and don't value serving people get themselves caught in these situations and live on fantasies of the future, somehow going to rescue them abundantly in the universe. The reality is that if they go out and they make a difference in people's lives, they cut up their credit cards until they can afford them. And what I mean by affording them, if they can pay them every month on time, then they can manage them. If they can't, they shouldn't be using a credit card. That's my opinion about it.
And also be realistic about the lifestyle that they can afford as well, because there's in this US, I remember this whole living more above what we can afford that creates this disillusion and this big gap between that image that we want to give to others and where we are really. A lot of people say, oh, fake it until you make it in the US. Well, you know, that brings you in deep debt.
Well, you know, I haven't had debt in 20-something years, so and the reason being is because I learned that. And I was in debt, and I had credit cards, and I did the same thing up until around 27, 8 years old. And then I finally, banged my head against the wall expecting some sort of miracle, and I was living day to day doing that, and that just doesn't get you where you want to go in life. So you have to learn how to manage money, and people who don't value it will never learn it. They're not going to learn it unless they value it. And when they bang their head against the wall long enough, and they finally get frustrated enough to finally say, you know what, this is important, they'll finally figure this out. And then all of a sudden they'll see the teachings that have been around on how to manage money around them, which they've never seen before, never wanted to see before. So living in a fantasy is not going to get you anything but depression and frustration and aggravation. And then you're going to have prayer and hope, and you'll be vulnerable to quick get-rich schemes trying to get you out of your crazies. Wiser to take, the richest man in Babylon, in my book, How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven, I still think are worthy reads, because what they do is it grounds people in the reality that they need to take a portion and live within their means and save a portion of their money. Once they save a portion of their money starts working for them, and that will buy them the opportunity to keep raising their lifestyle. I have an extraordinary lifestyle today because I saved and I invested, and now it buys me that lifestyle. But I live simply. I've saved my money. I saved 50% of my income for many, many years. I still do it today because I realize that if I do that, it buys me the opportunities that I have dreamed about and that most people dream about but never will have because they don't know how to manage money. So I always ask people, I was in New Zealand here about 2 years ago, here at the same location, and I had a guy there who stood up at the seminar and he said, Dr. Demartini, what do you do? I've been in business for 10 years. I'm in debt still $30,000. I just can't seem to get out of debt. It's just been a nightmare. My life has been stressful. What do you advise? And I asked him a question. I said, how many books have you read on business and finance and wealth building? He said, I can't say I've read a lot of those. I said, have you read them? Can you name one? He goes, no. I said, so you don't ever read any books on money management? No. He says, they put me to sleep. I said, what do you read? What do you study? He says, metaphysical things. I read things on spiritual healing and spiritual this and that. And I said, okay, so that is where you have a great deal of wealth, of knowledge, and your wealth is always in the form of your highest values. So it's not that you don't have wealth, it's just not cash wealth. And that doesn't pay your bills. And I said, can you see that you have financial issues because you don't have a value on money and you don't want to study it? When you really want something, you want to learn about it, you study it. And then I turned in the room to a gentleman that I'd gone to lunch with that had $750 million. He was a property developer, he was an extremely wealthy guy, who I just had lunch with about an hour and a half earlier. And I said, got a question for you. How many books have you read on financial and wealth building? He says, I got a friggin' library, at least 400 or 500 books on the topic. I read every one of them. I read them multiple times. I learned to save my money, invest my money, and wisely manage it. And he's a friggin' on his way to being a billionaire because of that. And the difference is one valued it, one didn't. And you can say, well, I want money, I want to be wealthy, all till you're blue in the face. But if your life doesn't demonstrate you really value it by studying it and by saving it and by knowing how to manage it, it's fantasy. And so I have to be really harsh on it, because otherwise people aren't going to listen. They're just going to live in their little la-la land about it. So you have to be able to...
That's good to hear. That is...
Yeah, you got to be able to do that. And look, when somebody says, well, oh, well, you're into material things. I said, no, I'm into spiritual material things. And I probably contribute and dedicate my life to the study. I'm able to study philosophy and theology daily because my money is working for me. That's what's so funny. And the people that are wanting to do that can't do that because they're desperately having to survive. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is not about survival or security or socialization. It's about self-fulfillment and spiritual actualization. And you won't make it to that until you learn the art of mastering money and mastering economics. Unless you're some diminished guru that basically feeds off other people who make money. And if you're doing that, well, then I guess that's an alternative. But what you're doing is you're basically feeding on people that work and learn how to manage money. So either way, somebody's going to depend on it, or you're going to depend on it. I'd rather have my autonomous and make sure I master that area of my life and dedicate my life to spiritual quest.
Thank you, John, for that answer. It makes sense, but I don't know what it is. There's definitely something, and I'm in that boat also. I'm in that same boat of there's something else. It's just I don't know what it is. You need to be so strong about it.
I tell you what it is. It's your values. You have a value on sharing them,
and yet if you don't think you're worthy,
sharing a message. You have a value on inspiration, but you haven't valued saving a portion of whatever you earn and stuck it away. And the second you do, I go into people's offices and in their homes, and I set them up on a financial savings program. And then we sit down and prioritize what they do to earn money. And then I focus them on serving people and having the electronic structure of savings done and their taxes done electronically and their lifestyle set up electronically. And I structure their finances in such a way where they can't screw up their wealth building. And the moment I do, their life changes. I could take anybody out there listening. I could go to them and sit down with them for a matter of a few hours and go to their investment company and structure their savings. And their life, 1 year later, will blow your mind on the difference. There's nothing, all it is structuring it, valuing it, and going and serving people. And once the structure's in place, you live on the difference. I see when you manage money wisely, you get more money to manage. And when you don't, you get more money taken away from you. That's why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. You have to value it, you have to structure it, and emotions sabotage wealth, and strategies build wealth. Once you do, I guarantee you, if I structured you on that system, I guarantee you 1 year from now, you go, my God, I can't believe I didn't do this years ago. No. It's not that difficult. It's just a matter of valuing it. So you're dedicated to bringing a message to people. You're dedicated to being of service. You're dedicated to spiritual quest. You're dedicated to metaphysical understanding. That is where your wealth is. But you haven't converted it into cash because you haven't had a higher value enough on cash and management of money to put that into cash. And once you do, your cash will be able to help you reach even more people and more thousands and millions of people with it. That you deserve too, because you got a great message. You got incredible knowledge, incredible outreach, incredible heart that very few people have in this world. And that can be put into capitalization where it could reach more people, that's all.
Yeah. And it's I don't know what it is about. I hear you, and at the same time I don't hear you, and that's the difficult thing, because you're like, I would do this for free, and I do this a lot for free, and now I have some new partnerships and everything being created. But once you love something so much that it's hard to even put a price tag on it, it's weird. It's just, you just love doing it and you're helping others. And then, but then you're omitting yourself, as you said at the beginning of the interview. You're not valuing who you are, or that I can see how the money actually, yes, would enable to create even more quality videos, travel around the world and interview speakers, you know, live. I mean, you can, the message could be spread, yeah, to even more reach. Is just selfish probably, and it's not even, yeah, we're missing on our spiritual quest by not tapping in this and not valuing money.
Well, I learned that a long time ago, and we're sitting here reaching out, reached 3 billion people because I valued money. And what's interesting is, the more you value it, the more comes to you, and the more you can do with it. Amazing things. My money goes to my foundation of education and research, so I don't need it for myself. I got plenty of it for myself. There's amazing things you can do in the world with it. There's humanitarian causes with it. There's all kind of things you can do with it, but you will hold yourself back until you do it. And I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm just talking about people that are not valuing it. And so I'm very firm about it, because I've watched this by the thousands all over the world. I just spoke in Kazakhstan the other day, and I was in Almaty, and there were people there that make $200 a month, this kind of thing, $2,000 a year, and you know, they were just sitting there, and they were running a story about how there's no money and there's this and that, and I explained to them, and I introduced a guy who is a billionaire in that same city. I had dinner with a guy who's one of the biggest property developers. He's got mining. He's just an amazing guy. And I sat down with him, and I introduced this other guy to him, and I said, listen to what this guy talks about. And you see in his conversation, he's focusing on what are the needs of the world, and how do I get those needs met? And how do I provide the services to get those needs met? And his conversation is all about that. And he doesn't have a lack, because he knows that if he serves the world and he values money, that he's got vast fortune. And it is that simple, and we make it very complex. But we can sometimes feel, we don't even realize that we're carrying around guilt and shame in our life, and self-minimization, and we're basically going into altruism. And I would say altruism is compensation for guilt and shame of the past and hidden agendas of the future. And you got to be able to get past those facades that we put on and get real about what we really want in life, or otherwise we lie to ourselves and hold back our service for humanity. So we have to be able to do both, and that is serve and be served, give and take. And those two are the reason why God created a sensory and motor function in our body is because we're here to do a service with our motor functions, and we're here to receive reward in our sensory functions. That's the keys of life.
Well, thank you.
And there really is an abundance, because there's no limit on what we can do to serve, and there's no limit on how much we can earn because of that.
And you're a great example of that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing so passionately your wisdom with us, and because you don't have to. Thank you for taking the time to do